Okay, hello everyone. I am Hoàng Long from MPP 2, and today's lesson is all about advertising. And the first skill you need to know is how to write a creative brief. So this is the agenda of today. First of all, I'm going to go through some definition of the creative brief. I'm going to describe the briefing in the real agency and the reasons why briefing is really important to you as a marketers. And some principles of preparing a creative brief should be mentioned here. And also, I'm gonna give you the basic format of the creative brief that every agency follow, and some tips for you guys if you want to prepare a real creative brief. First of all, by definition, a creative brief is a document produced by the requesting party, the customer or the client, with the goal of establishing the defining aspects of a creative piece of advertising materials, such as a TVC, a print advertisement, or a website banner. But for me, I would like to describe it as a blueprint, a guide, or even a source of inspiration for the advertisers as well as the agency, because all you can have is this creative brief to discuss and to understand what the client wants and wants to achieve in the future. So it's quite essential to know that if you take the role of communication and marketing, knowing how to write a creative brief is really important. The question is that, do all the great campaigns come from great briefs? The answer is no, but the chances of getting a good campaign will definitely increase if you spend enough time and effort on preparing a brief. So in the agency, there is a position called account, and this person, most of the time, he or she takes responsibility for preparing the brief. But it depends on how the agency works and how the organization is divided. Sometimes the strategic planner will go along with the account and prepare the creative brief on the first meeting with the client. In reality, there are still many verbal-only briefs given to agency without target audience, without smart objectives. I had a friend, she works in a creative agency, and she once told me that sometimes the client just give you one sentence of brief. For example, like, I just got a new product quality certificate. I want you to promote it for me. And that's all for the brief. No paper, no writing, no record. And that's the reality that you have to get used to. Okay. So to sum up, I'm gonna go briefly to some key points that why the creative brief is so important in advertising agency. First, it leads to a better work. Brief is what the creative team use to brainstorm or to give the account, and the account planner, sometimes they have to meet up with the clients several times. And it really takes time if you just back and forth everything, caused by misunderstanding. And the third reason is that at the end of a creative brief, you have a signature that makes sure that both parties agree with what is written in the brief. So it makes remuneration fairer to the both parties. So if you follow some principles when writing a creative brief, your brief would be much more better. And as following, I will show you 3 principles that I find the most important to you guys. First of all, you must be clear about what is needed, because there are tons of information you have to include in the brief, but you have to filter it and you know what is really important and what is the key issue that matters to the business. The second thing is that you should provide the critical information necessary not to complete the task. Because you don't just give some basic information on the surface of the problem. You have to dig down, and that's why the critical thinking skill is really important in this. And the third thing is that in your brief, you have to write in the way that inspire or motivate people to work or to brainstorm, because that is the basic information that the creative team had. As I said, the brief is a inspiration source for the creative team. So let's come to the main part of the creative brief. Overall, basically in the agency, this format can change because of the position and the variation in different agencies. But in general, you have overall 10 steps. First of all is the background. After setting the background, you will come to the part of setting objectives and defining the target audience. After you setting the TA, you have to know, okay, what is the real issue of this target audience and what is their insight. Then you have to come up with the intended message or proposition that you want to deliver to your customer. Besides, you have to know what is your tone of voice. It depends on the brand, and otherwise you have to manage the risk assessment and mandatories. And the last thing is estimate the media and budget. And at the end of the brief, you have to have the signature or logo, something that makes sure that both parties approve to this creative brief. So let's move to detail. This is the format of one of the creative brief that I borrowed from one of my friends working in an agency. You can use so many tools such as the SWOT, list down some strengths, weakness, and also analyze some opportunities and threats of the market to understand the background of your the background and the place where are you standing at the moment. And you can also use some other tools such as the category or competition analysis to understand more about your competitors and your rivals. After you understand the big picture of the market, you have to set the objectives. In general, we have 3 types of objectives. We call business objectives, marketing objectives, and communication objectives. But most of the time, you should focus on these 2. Marketing objectives are things such as I want to increase my market share to how many %. And regards to the marketing objectives, you care about the market share, the sales, or the brand awareness, the brand health indexes. And regards to the communication objectives, you care about some indexes such as the reach of people, the people that your campaign can reach, the behavior that you want them to change, or the message that you want them to understand, and it belongs to the communication objectives. And after this part, you can add up something, we call that the previous learning points. Because during the time you are running a lot of projects, you can gain some experience and some learning points that are really precious. So you can add up here in case that is needed. Okay, so to target your audience, to achieve those objectives, you need to defining your customer, your audience in different dimensions, such as demographics information. You should mention their age, their gender, income, occupation, or marital status. Also, you should notice that where are they currently? Are they living in an urban, or they are living in the rural area? In what cities? You should state clearly here. And regarding to the psychology factors, you should mention about their personality, their lifestyle, what are they doing currently, their behaviors, their interests, what they like to see, what they do every day, what kind of interest and they watch every day. And last but not least, you should mention their attitude and perception to that category or to your brand. So following this format, you have a clear picture about who you're gonna target, and that will help you be easier in defining the way to approach them. Okay, and move to the next part is the problem. So I want you guys to ask some questions such as what is your brand's issues? In several information you have a lot of issues regarding to your brand, but what is the most important and urgent one, because you know that in a business you don't have to solve everything at the same time, and you should state why you need to solve it now. Okay, identifying the problem concisely will help you a lot more, and it is the key to a better solution. And based on the following issue, you should identify, okay, what is your customer insight in this situation, and based on that you deliver a suitable message so that they can change their behavior, change their mindset, and you get the desired response. And the tone of voice is really important in terms of communication, because different brands has different image, and their style, their way of telling the story are also really different. So written tone of voice is simply the personality of your brand or company as expressed through the written word. The tone of voice will govern what you say in writings and how you say the content and the style of textual communication. And to identify the brand's tone of voice, I have the example for you. For example, if you work for a organic yogurt brand, some tone of voice you can define is like the honesty, friendly, and principled. And those really matter because it has to match with the target audience so that you deliver the message they will open and accept it. And the most important thing, I think, but most of the case people usually forget this, is the risk assessment and mandatories. The risk assessment is really important because it helps you to know. Sorry. So the format of risk assessment is okay. So the risk assessment includes the part that, for example, you follow the Vietnamese culture and law of advertising in Vietnam when running the campaign, or you want to avoid the display product cooperation as well as violent content in advertising activities. And regarding to the mandatories, it is some requirements and some rules that you have to follow during the time you execute your idea, such as the logo use. What is the standard logo that you have to use, and the color, the color code or something. And this is gonna be agreed between the clients and the agency that work with them in order to avoid some miscommunication and affect the brand image. Okay, and the next part is the media and purchase. Moving on to this part, you should include some channel, some platform for your activities and including some timing, the key dates, the schedule of your project. You should estimate and predict in order to estimate one more important thing, that is the budget allocation. Based on your experience, you are able to estimate this amount and report to the clients if needed. Alright, so that's all for the format of the creative brief. So as I mentioned before, writing a good brief is really important because what you brief reflect what you get back in return. And so I'm gonna give you some tips to prepare a better brief in an agency as well as if you work in an as an advertiser.
Okay, em dừng này tí. Bệnh gì
Okay.
nữa?
Okay, so as I mentioned beforehand, writing a good brief is really essential for you if you are an advertiser or if you work for an agency. So I'm going to give you some tips for preparing a good brief, how to get a good meeting, and how to come up with a effective creative brief. First of all, regarding to the briefing organization or the advertiser, you should develop a briefing format that fit your brand beliefs about communication. And because you have to work with several agencies, so you have to keep the briefing form simple and provide guidance on how to use it. And consider more collaborative ways of working and agreeing the final brief, because during the time you discuss with the agency, you have a lot of problem come up and you have to solve one by one. So in order to agree the final brief, it takes a lot of effort. So you need to improve the skill. And the most important thing is that you have to treat the brief with the same levels of professionalism, standards, and accountability as other areas of your business. And to the brief writer or the agency, as I mentioned, most of the time the account will take responsibility for this job. So before you write anything, think first. Not just think about what the client said, but you have to deep down into what the real issue is. So the critical thinking skill is really important if you want to work in this position. Don't just fill out a form because that is not the agency want you to perform. You have to use the format of the creative brief to record your thought process as well as record the evidence, all of the information that you find it really necessary and essential for your project. And you only include the relevant and the critical information in the brief with the remainder in the attachment. And the last thing is that in case that your client just give you a verbal communication, like in briefing, like they just said one sentence and they want you to perform one project for them, it is really useful for you to confirm again with an email or something like that, because as I said, at the end of the day, you have to agree with the client and both of the parties should approve